Hello, Zeb Aurelios from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Inside the Force. Carabas. Gotta go, Hera's here.
It is a period of Star Wars mania, as new movies, comic books, novels, and TV shows populate the system. Fueled by their love and passion for the galaxy far, far away, two exceptional geeks tap into hundreds of holocrons in order to bring you the knowledge and insight of all things Star Wars. Come and join them as they go inside the Force.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here, and with me on the line, sitting in for Casey, is our own Cody Geiler.
Hello there.
What's up, man?
Hey, man.
How we doing this evening, Cody Geiler?
Doing good. Any day to talk about Star Wars is a good day in my book.
It is, and we're upon a new year. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to the listeners as well.
Yes. Lots of big things coming this year. I feel like Casey and I, just in our previous episode, kind of gave a rundown of what we expect to see or hear in 2018, not just from Inside the Force, but technically from Lucasfilm and what we're going to get. Go ahead, Cody, and tell us some of those. What are your big things you expect from Lucasfilm this year? Announcements or, what you're looking for?
Yeah, listen to what you guys already talked about on the show last week. I feel like the biggest one is, we've got Solo coming up here in, 4 months?
Yeah, 4 months.
So I'm excited about that. I mean, I know there's a lot of intrigue and sort of reservations about recasting Han Solo, but I'm looking forward to it. Desperately waiting for this trailer to come out. I thought we would have had it by now. So hopefully in the next week or so, we might see something from it and kind of spark some of that excitement. Besides Solo, hoping to get some kind of announcements about future movies. Kenobi, I know you guys went into Kenobi a little bit, talking about Ewan McGregor, and hopefully they don't recast him. Speaking of recasting characters, but I think it seems. I mean, Ewan McGregor's been, I guess he just won a Golden Globe, so he's kind of been in the spotlight a little bit more recently. Yeah. And they kind of interviewed him and kind of probed him a little bit about the Obi-Wan movie, and he kind of did that coy answer where it's not really, there's nothing happening, but I'd love to come back and play the character. But I mean, that could just be him saying, basically he's got a contract where he's not allowed to talk about it. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure he's already going through a script, and they're probably getting ready to shoot sometime within the next year or so. So I'd love to get an announcement about that. I'm really looking forward to hearing when and where Star Wars Celebration could be.
Yes.
Because that could impact my budget in a big way.
Yes.
If it's in California versus Orlando.
Right. Hey, we can drive to California. Just take an extra day.
I've driven there with my brother, how long did it take you? Well, we split it up over a couple days because we kind of did a cross-country trip. So, we kind of drove straight through a lot of the flatlands.
Well, that's what we should do.
Yeah. Yeah. Go see the Grand Canyon, spend a night in Vegas.
Yeah.
Do it big.
Why not?
That'd be awesome.
I'll be broke as hell, but, it's okay.
Hey, we do it for Star Wars, right?
That's right. We're committed.
Yeah.
Hopefully, just think about it. We're doing the show on the road.
Oh, man, that would be epic.
Yes, right?
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Okay, so, I'm a little bummed, thinking about it. I'm actually a little bummed that there won't be a movie this December.
I know. It seems like we've got to get some kind of big announcement heading into the fall winter time.
Yes.
I know Rebels is coming back sometime soon as well. So, looking forward to, I don't know how many episodes we have left in Rebels, to be honest, but whenever that ends, so maybe sometime over the summer, there could be a potential announcement about future TV shows, and then Disney streaming service is coming
in
2019.
Right.
So, I mean, I would love to have something like some kind of announcement of a TV show. If this announcement of a Kenobi movie doesn't happen until after episode 9 sort of starts ramping up or whatever, I could see there being a TV announcement that kind of gets us through that sort of winter normal Christmas Star Wars time, because I've kind of associated that like Christmas time with Star Wars.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And and that's a good point. We've focused a little bit on 2018, but let's just run down a little bit of what's coming in 2019. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, or I don't know. I guess, I mean, we're assuming that Celebration is 2019, which I think it's going to be. So,
yeah,
but again, we haven't had
announced.
It hasn't been announced.
Yeah, even the year hasn't been announced.
Well, again, there's speculation last year that, because they've been kind of doing it every 2 years. So I think everybody just assumed it was 2019. But again, it's possible they could do it 2019, but they could do it in Germany again, or they could do it in London. We don't know if we're getting it in the States, but I'm thinking we will. I'm thinking they'll do probably, and unfortunately, like we were kind of talking about, it could probably be Anaheim again, but the problem is that in coinciding with that, Celebration, you have the opening of Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge, in both Hollywood and in Orlando.
Yep.
So it just makes sense to do the Celebration at one of those locations, right? And then you got, like you said, the streaming service, which is going to be massive because you're going to have probably announcements of what original content is going on there, possibly another animated show, possibly a live action show, which I really anticipate happening.
I mean, if the live action show's launching with the streaming service, wouldn't that have to start casting and shooting soon?
Yeah, well, you could do it, this summer, this fall. I mean, again, I'm under the assumption that there's things already in the works because, again, if you think about it, when Clone Wars got canceled, they had already been working on Rebels.
Yeah.
So, no one, they don't have to obviously disclose anything or what they're doing because I feel like they're just modifying. I really feel like this live action series is going to come from a lot. It's going to come from what Lucas had already started building. From
those, I guess they were titled Underworld.
The Underworld
the
scripts
that he.
Yes.
Because those scripts were all, I think we've talked about it. They were way over budget for the time that he wrote them. Correct?
Yeah, they had 100 scripts that they estimated to spend about $10 million per episode, which was crazy for a show at the time because normally you're only spending I guess roughly $2, $3, $4 million, right? Mm-hmm. So they had all this money that they had to spend in effects, but you look at like what Star Trek's doing now on TV. It's like, I mean, that looks pretty good, even though I don't watch it, and I'm not really intrigued by the story. But I mean, there's the good effects going on in that show. So, and I feel like an Underworld show where you're not really in space that much. It should be doable. But
well, and if they're on a streaming service as opposed to
network.
A network, yeah, they're not as confined to the budget that a network show might
and
be
you're
under.
doing less
scrutiny.
episodes.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to be greenlit or how many seasons. They can plan out the whole thing on their streaming service and then just kind of go with it.
Absolutely, and so I feel that's why I'm still sticking behind my guns that I think the next series announced is a live action on that streaming service, and I feel like Dave Filoni is going to be a part of it.
That would be really interesting.
And then, of course, to top it all off, you got episode 9 coming in December of 2019. So it's a big year. It's a big year of new things introduced as well as closing out a trilogy. But we're in the beginning of 18, so we got a long way to go. I'm just going to breeze through some news here because what we're going to get to is kind of what we talked about when Casey and I did our review. We want to spend a lot of January still talking about The Last Jedi because I feel like we didn't finish out everything we wanted to talk about. I wanted to bring everybody's opinions in that are associated with the show. So that's why Cody's on here, because I'm sure we got a lot to get to on The Last Jedi. But just real quick before, just a couple quick announcements. Go to our website, insidetheforce.com, or any of our social channels. Our very own Russell Johnson put out a review for Vader number 10, Darth Vader number 10, the comic right now, written by Charles Soule, which is unbelievable. Have you read any of that, Cody?
I haven't, but I've been on the show while Russ has been reviewing and talking about the Vader series, and I know you're a big fan. I saw the preview. I've read a little bit of the spoilers from the Vader issues, so I know a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I saw the preview for this recent one with Jocasta Nu.
Yes.
And it looks really interesting.
Well, it brings up a lot of questions. And I tell you what, and honestly, I'll probably bring it up when we start talking about The Last Jedi, because I was telling Casey, I think offline, that there's statements that she makes, referring not talking to one of her aides at the time, kind of as you find out what she's been doing. There's things she says in there about the Jedi Order that, to me, somewhat contradicts what happens in The Last Jedi, if you can imagine that much time. But how she talks about the beliefs of the Jedi and the importance of maintaining it and the importance of fighting evil, it's like it's a lot of the things that Luke doesn't believe in, So anyway, I'll get more into that when we get into The Last Jedi, but it brought up, when I was reading it, brought up a lot of things in my mind about that, which was pretty neat. I really, really, really enjoy it. So that's out there. That just, number 10 just dropped yesterday. Russ got a pretty good review of it on here. We've got, like you mentioned briefly, Rebels. Rebels will be back February 24th. With the 10th episode, season 4, as they get towards the end of the series. I think you kind of mentioned, I think there's 10 episodes left.
Okay.
But don't hold me to that, because I'm not sure. I think it's 10. And that will finish up close to the end of May, the end of April, which will obviously lead into the Han Solo film, which comes out in May. So, and of course, IDW is starting to, IDW has been issuing Star Wars comics as well over the past few months. They've actually focused more on kind of the younger generation. It's a different style of art. They're doing Star Wars Adventures. They're redoing the film adaptations. There's a Rogue One comic from IDW. There's a Force Awakens, and they're a little kind of on the younger age, but still really cool. Anyway, so Force of Destiny is now on the IDW line. So Force of Destiny, they're releasing Leia comics, and Leia just got announced. They are doing a Hera series of comics, a Rey. So they're kind of continuing these adventures and Forces of Destiny. So they're new ones. They're not, repeats of the series. So new adventures. So check that out. And then I thought it was really cool. Last thing I mentioned is actually two things. One, there's a new mobile game coming. Have you seen that announcement?
I just saw it today, actually.
Yeah, it just came out today. Star Wars Rivals, a new mobile game. Man, they've put out a lot of mobile games. I haven't really played any of them.
That's what's interesting is, I've kind of talked with Casey about this offline about, is it EA made the game, I'm assuming? Because they have the deal with Lucasfilm for Star Wars games.
I guess it is. I'm not sure.
Because the interesting thing with EA is, really since Disney bought Star Wars, they've really only made 2 console games, the Battlefront games, and then there's a handful of mobile games. which I haven't really been interested in, just because I don't really play mobile games.
Me neither.
But I've played the Battlefront games and I enjoy them. There's little things, people kind of critique with Battlefront and the first one not having a lot of content.
No storyline.
Yeah. And the campaign of the second Battlefront was great. I mean, I loved it. I honestly wanted more from the campaign, but I'd love to see them release other games outside of the multiplayer sort of style, some kind of single player focused game, or potentially a open world type game. Or just more of a story based game would be really interesting. And I know there was a game that was sort of canceled or moved to another development team, which was going to be it was going to be a game written by Amy Hennig, who wrote the Uncharted series.
Yes.
And I was looking forward to that a lot, and then now it's not happening.
That was 1313.
What are they doing with the
1313 would have been just a game changer, I think, because we saw gameplay from that at one of the celebrations. And it was going to introduce Boba Fett. It was, again, centered around that underworld type of series, and it looked unbelievable. And it was like open world. I mean, you were on Coruscant, just massive levels of places to go, but there was a storyline, and at the time, it wasn't necessarily that it was canon. I think it was, a more expanded universe, and maybe that's why they scrapped it, because it kind of maybe contradicted some things that they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, why not develop a game like that and get away, like you said, get away from the multiplayer thing, because that was so great about Force Unleashed too.
Force Unleashed were great games.
Oh man, great stories, great campaigns, great gameplay, but you didn't have multiplayer. That because I'm with you. I'm not real big on the multiplayer. I'm more about the storylines and the campaigns and learning about more characters and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I hope they do more of those things. These mobile games are more about the fighting than they are about stories. At least what I see from them. The Galaxy Heroes, I think it's called Galaxy of Heroes. I think you're just fighting each other, kind of like the fantasy. What do you call it? Final Fantasy type style,
like turn-based.
Yes, yeah, turn-based fighting. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not really into that. So anyway. Okay, so last thing before we get into it, we both watched the Star Wars Last Jedi Secrets Explained on the Star Wars show this week. What did you think about that?
I thought it was really cool to get they had everyone from the story group except for Kiri Hart, right?
Yeah, I think they have those were the main members. I think there's 3 or 4 more actually, because they've had a couple on the Star Wars show that are just kind of smaller story group kind of people.
Gotcha.
But Carrie Hart apparently, yeah, she's the head honcho of the story group.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was awesome. I mean, a lot of the stuff that they broke down, there were some little Easter egg things that have kind of already been talked about online. So a lot of it, some of us probably already saw or, seeing the movie multiple times. But it was really cool because they released a bunch of stills that they showed on the Star Wars show that are some of the higher quality stills that we have from the movie. So if anybody is wanting to make some awesome cover photos for their social media, you can just go there and grab some sweet photos from The Last Jedi.
Cool. Yeah, I thought there's definitely things they talked about that I would have never have seen or gotten. I love the what was the oh man, you might have to remind me. What was the Arabash that was on DJ's?
It said "Don't join."
Don't join. That's what it is. Don't.
And that's
join.
where they got his code name from. Yeah.
DJ, don't join. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, everyone's always speculating right before The Last Jedi came out, and I think they kind of poked fun I think Pablo or somebody like poked fun at the fact that like people thought he was going to be Ezra.
Yes.
In the show, which is kind of funny that they made a joke about that.
They did.
You know, we heard DJ and everybody's thinking like, oh, what is he going to be? Like, is he going to be a dark Jedi or like, what's that going to mean?
Yeah.
And it just means don't join.
I know. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. But no, great insight on that episode. A little long, you know, it's longer than a normal episode. I think it was like 25 minutes, but you get wrapped up into a lot of the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and they talk some about like some little moments like production wise making the movie that are kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Little anecdotes like that. So I definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like the story group almost is responsible, at least Pablo is, like naming everything.
It talked about a lot of the background characters and characters that are in the visual dictionary.
Right.
They talked on this Secrets of the Last Jedi. They talked a lot about some of the cameos that people who may have like been friends of Rian Johnson or just different celebrities that are in the movie. So it's kind of cool because I didn't necessarily know all of those cameos. So it was cool to get to see like who some of those people were. Like I didn't know Edgar Wright was in the movie.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah.
Like maybe he's not. Maybe he got cut out.
No, he is. I
didn't see him.
Yeah, he's on that. He's on Crate, one of the last soldiers there. Whenever they first get there and they're kind of figuring out what to do. Yeah, he's back there in the background with his dark hair.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and then there was it was weird because they mentioned one of those aliens. I think his name is. I have to see it. I'm looking at it. I'm getting ready to look at it real quick. But I'm reading. I'm going through the audiobook right now of Canto Bight, and one of the characters. Kedpin Shoklop. He is so Canto Bight. The novel is comprised of 4 short stories, and the first one being one called Rules of the Game, which is this wormhole species alien named Kedpin Shoklop. He's like this little pink character that's got one eye, and his scene got cut in The Last Jedi. He was in a scene where when the I can't remember what they're called, the horse type,
the Faviers.
The Faviers, yeah. So when they're busting through the casino and all that, you know, there's one scene where he's like just got done with a massage, and they bust through that room where he's at, and but anyway, so he would have been in the movie, but he's not, and his character was used as one of the stories in Canto Bight. So, and
it sounded like there's going to be a deleted scene that they're going to potentially have on the
Blu-ray
because
there's a picture of it. They actually there's a picture of it on their website now that has the scene. So yeah, it's filmed and everything. But I was wondering when I started listening to it when because it never says when this took place. So you know that's the scene. That scene obviously is not in the book. So I'm assuming that scene takes place after shortly after, because he's there on the vacation. And so this part of the story, I'm assuming, happens right before, you know, Finn and Rose get there and all this stuff goes down, you know, because that stuff's never mentioned in the book. So anyway, so at least I know that it's during that time. These stories, I guess, take place during the time of right before The Last Jedi. So I'm in the middle of the second story now. I mean, it's okay. I'm not really in love with the book right now, but it's okay right now. Okay, so other than that, that's kind of got everybody caught up on. But again, right before we get to The Last Jedi, though, Cody, we got to talk briefly about because you are very excited for Solo, which
I am.
Yeah. So why are you so excited about Solo?
Let's see. For one, after just seeing The Last Jedi, we have a Star Wars movie coming in 4 months.
True.
Just let that sink in a little bit, which is just kind of crazy. So maybe some of it's like this running off the high of like just seeing a Star Wars movie. But I'm really looking forward to.
Would you? Let me do a side note real quick. Would you be happy with 2 Star Wars movies a year, like how they do Marvel, basically?
Oh yeah, I mean,
really?
To be honest, like I don't see why somebody wouldn't.
Yeah,
now,
true.
I can see the counterpoint of putting out too many movies and getting to that. Like a lot of people talk about the potential superhero fatigue, with Marvel and with DC movies. So I can understand why, with this Obi-Wan film not being announced yet, why they're maybe kind of rethinking and thinking about the future and what movies they're going to make in the Rian Johnson trilogy. And I do appreciate the fact that they're not trying to just, crank movies out,
right?
And they're taking their time with it. But as far as for Solo, I mean, I was excited when they hired the original directors, when they had Chris Miller and Philip Lord. I thought that was going to be a great way to give us a just fun, exciting Star Wars comedy where you just go on this adventure and you're just laughing and just having a good time.
So really like a Guardians movie.
Yeah. Like that's basically kind of what you expect. I mean, from them coming off of the Lego movie, that's the kind of humor that I expected from day one. So then, there's the director shuffle where they were taken off and then they got Ron Howard to come on. I was kind of like shocked like anybody else would have been when that happened. I mean, they were so far into production already. But it seems like ever since Ron Howard took over, he's had a brilliant social media campaign for it because he just started tweeting set photos and things that articles that have kind of come out since then of people saying with the 2 directors it was kind of an issue because they're 2 guys that they have to get approval from on set and for concepts and design and things like that. And that their setups were just taking longer. They were shooting more than was necessarily on the script and trying to, just improv and get more footage. And it was just taking too long. So it seems like Ron Howard coming in, being this kind of like seasoned veteran director, voice of reason, has kind of like calmed things down. And everything that he's put out on social media has just, I don't know, I've just been so excited. I mean, all the little snippets, and I've just been eating it up and mining through the photos and being like, oh, what's that over there in the frame, So I'm looking forward to seeing a movie that almost has like calls back to potentially American Graffiti, which is a early George Lucas film that had Ron Howard and Harrison Ford in it. I think that's a great sort of seeing Ron Howard come on this film makes me think that, it's almost like it happened for a reason because, they had that connection from that movie that's, all about cars and the love of cars and racing, and Han Solo is this awesome pilot. And I think there could be a lot of interesting stuff that he brought in the reshoots that bring out some of those moments.
Right. So what's your feeling about the look of the Falcon?
Look of the Falcon. It's different. I think it's great that they changed the paint. It's got this blue and white look. The like elongated front where the like forks usually were,
yes,
is kind of strange. I don't really understand. At first, I was looking at it and I was like, "Is that where they?" Because it seems like in the old books about like Star Wars ships, that was where we never saw it in the movie, but that was where the Falcon could pick up like a freight, or push a freight or whatever.
Oh.
So it seems weird that area is covered up. And I was like, originally when I saw the Lego, I was thinking, is that like some kind of cargo freight that's like stuck in between and it like comes out, but it doesn't look like it comes out. It looks like it's
part of the ship.
A solid piece. So that's kind of strange if that part of the functionality of the ship is taken away. But I mean, some of it makes sense because it looks like this clean, sleek Cadillac that Lando would fly, as opposed to the old beat up ship that Han and Chewie have. But I'm hoping that throughout the movie, the Falcon just gets beat up. And
I guess that's
as soon as that like transition of Han winning it from Lando, or if they go on an adventure together in it for a little bit and then he wins it from Lando, I just want to see that clean new ship kind of just get wrecked and shot at and damaged throughout the movie.
Right. Because we've mentioned it's in episode 3 apparently.
Yeah.
The Falcon is seen
flying
in episode
onto
3.
Coruscant?
Yes. And it looks like the Falcon from episode 4. So, they can obviously, I guess they can easily recant that. I don't know if it's written down anywhere that's canon. You know what I mean? Like,
did George Lucas just say it in like an interview or something?
I know he has verbally said it. Now, whether or not it's in any literature or anything, I don't know. I don't. I'd have to look. I'd have to look it up.
It seems like if we're still going off of it being the Falcon, that they're just kind of retconning it. Because I don't see how it could go from looking like the Falcon to looking like this clean new ship, then back to looking like the Falcon we know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. So anyway, I'm definitely open to I'm gonna see Solo, and I'm definitely open to the movie. I just definitely not a big fan of recasting, but again, we'll talk about all that once we see what they do to it. But
that's the thing is I need to see footage, because we've seen I don't know if you guys talked much about the leaked photo of Alden Ehrenreich as Han, but that's out there, and so we've seen like our first kind of look of what he looks like, and I think he looks good. I mean, I think he looks close to Harrison Ford. I wouldn't expect him to look exactly like him, but I just need to see him in footage. Hear the Star Wars music, see him, on screen, and then I think they're going to wait and save his dialogue till like one of the last trailers, because I think that's the thing that's going to make people wonder, like, how is he playing Han Solo?
Yeah,
and that'll probably be the make or break point for a lot of people.
Right, I agree. Okay, so getting into Last Jedi, let's talk about Last Jedi. So I've still only seen it twice. The opening on Thursday, the Friday afternoon showing that we all went to, and you have seen it 4 times now.
I have, all opening weekend.
Thursday,
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, so we've had about the same amount of time to think about it. So go ahead and just give us your overall sense of your feeling about the film.
The cool thing about this movie is that I found myself talking about it to a lot more people and just thinking about it than I did with The Force Awakens. Some of it's a lot more questions and a lot more like, can you believe they did this? Are we going like spoilers on?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Full
so
spoilers.
some of it's the big moments. When I first saw it, a lot of things kind of shocked me, to be honest. I mean, the biggest shock was Luke at the end. Seeing it the first time, you kind of don't realize that it's not really Luke until they have the big reveal that he's a projection. And I was just kind of left the theater, and I think we saw it together, Dave, and a couple of other people that we usually go with, and we all kind of left the theater just in this kind of it was kind of like a daze. Yes. Where we're just kind of, nobody said a lot, which you could tell we were all processing it, but I was just very shocked by what they did with Luke. And the first time it bummed me out a little bit, to be honest, because there was this Luke being a projection, and I was like, oh, great, he's still alive. And then he dies. And then I was like, well, why'd they do that?
Yeah.
Just to have him die. So that kind of left me like uneasy. Seeing it multiple times, going back second, third, and then the fourth time, that moment with Luke has gotten a lot better for me. That was the big thing that I kind of was mulling over. And and it was a lot more fun the other times because I guess I knew it was coming and it didn't surprise me so much. But it was really cool. I went and saw it with my mom on Sunday, and we were in the theater, and she was talking about how she saw A New Hope back opening weekend when it came out in the city that we live in. And it was just a really cool moment to kind of like reminisce and talk about Star Wars with her, because I kind of got into Star Wars because my family, introduced it to me.
Yeah.
And then to get to see it with her, and she loved The Last Jedi. She loved the big moment with Luke at the end. She thought it was a perfect way for him to go out. So it was really cool to be able to see this movie through other people as well, because it kind of just adds to the fun of Star Wars. Different people take different things away.
Yeah.
I really love all the stuff with Kylo. I thought his character arc and Adam Driver's acting was awesome. Those parts were like the best part of the film for me. I could have had more of him and Rey.
Yeah.
And their Force connection. There's a lot. I don't know how you want to go through it. There's a lot of I have some pros and cons and stuff. Cause there's there's, like I said, with the Luke moment, there's things I didn't like. But there's things that on repeat viewings have kind of I've sat with. The biggest takeaway I had the first time I saw it is there were kind of three things that threw me out of the movie. And that's like sort of that willing suspension of disbelief that you have when you go into a movie. Mm-hmm. The Leia surviving in space was a big moment for me where I was just like, oh wow, they actually they killed her character when they did that fake out. And then she's alive and she uses the Force to kind of just pull herself back in.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, why'd you fake us out that she was dead? What was the point of that reversal other than just a shock and awe?
Right.
So that was kind of weird for me. Still kind of sits weird with me when I see it because I love the thought behind it of Leia using the Force. She's this powerful Force user. Some of the books and other material have gone on to say that, Yoda wanted to train her and, saying how strong she is in the Force. And I read this interview with Rian Johnson where he says the idea kind of came when they were talking about that super strength that a mother gets, in these moments you hear about where, they might have a child that's trapped in a car and they somehow are able to lift a car. These things you hear about where you're like, how does that even possible? So I love the idea behind that scene. I just don't. The fact that she's in space and she can breathe in space is just weird to me for some reason.
Yeah.
So that moment, the Luke Force projection, the first time around was that new information, right? Something new that you weren't used to in Star Wars. And then Yoda being able to control the weather with the Force, with the lightning was also kind of oh, I didn't know that this could happen with the Force.
Right.
And I guess they've set that up with the Bendu in Rebels.
Correct. Well, true.
Any of you watch Rebels. So I guess the idea of the Force and controlling the weather isn't a new thing for Star Wars. But in that movie and in a film, it was kind of new information I was trying to take in. So those were three big things that kind of pulled me out, and I was kind of not... I found myself questioning the story and the decisions.
Right. Okay. Well, I think. Well, I'll bring up a few things, and maybe we can probably go from there. But as I analyze it and keep thinking about it, since I've seen it, I'm definitely going to probably see it one more time, probably this weekend. And I was thinking. Honestly, one thing that I just thought of recently that I never kind of thought about it first couple of showings was I almost have a little bit of a problem that it's that it takes place right after episode 7. I mean, because if you think about it, it's not necessarily a sequel. Like it's basically 7 and 8 are one big movie. Similar to, as you can now make the argument that Rogue One and Episode 4 are one movie, because there is really no time gap in between what happens in each film. We're picking up right where we left off, so it's I don't know. I feel like, to me, these Star Wars films, especially obviously the episodic ones, they're kind of the self-contained stories, and then there are some lingering things in each one that propel it into what's happening in the next one. And I don't know if I just feel like I don't know. I don't know if how well that sits with me now that it's a true, like, connected story versus a separate story. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think you saying that it picking up is kind of strange. I mean, it's the first time we've done that in a saga film or in any Star Wars movie. And so it feels like it's 7.5, right? Not really a true episode 8, because it takes place over a short period of time. And the other sort of strange part about it being so close is, to me, I think I mentioned this to, I think I've at least talked to this about with Casey, but I don't know if I've told you that 7 and 8 feel very disjointed.
Yeah.
As films to me. I enjoy them both. I love The Force Awakens. I like The Last Jedi. I don't think that I love it. And sometimes I love a lot of the new things that happen. I love a lot of the character arcs. Kylo's especially. Poe has a really great character arc. A lot of the new things they introduce are really cool, but sometimes it feels like The Last Jedi takes something that was set up in The Force Awakens and just kind of squashes it.
Yeah.
And it feels almost like two directors looked at a story, and one of them started with this story and the other was like, I don't really like that, I'm going to go this way instead, as opposed to building off of it and saying, oh, that's interesting, let me add this that, somebody else might not have thought about. So the idea of them being disjointed kind of, I think, is why The Last Jedi is kind of this uneasy feeling for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm starting to think, like, if you would have it doesn't matter how much of a time gap, but I just feel like there should have been some type of time gap. Like if you just think about this, just think if it's a month or 2 months, and
like after Rey got to the island.
Well, yes, I mean, you could do it that way if you wanted to. If you wanted to establish, what. If you wanted to establish, if JJ still wanted to establish what that was at the end, but say he does the way he did it, you have to continue from there. But what to me, it's like so let's just say it's a month, because there's a little bit of a gap there. You're only missing technically, him grabbing the saber and throwing it over his shoulder, because that's the only thing that really happens at that point, right? That's the only part. That's the only thing you're missing. They don't say anything to each other there. Mm-hmm. So you could have skipped. You could have time jumped over her just staying there and trying to talk to him or trying to get him to help her. I mean, you can drop in a month later and he can still be like, I'm not training you. I'm not. No matter what you do, I'm not training you. You can stay here forever, whatever. Blah blah. Anyway, but then on the other situation, it's like. The rebels, or not the rebels, the resistance. I guess the rebels now. They keep talking about a new rebellion now.
Yeah, it's like they renamed them too. Yeah, another thing that feels strange. It's like
very strange.
They're resistance. Yeah.
So, you could have, Kylo Ren could have went to Snoke still, and then it took them. They could have evacuated the base without the First Order being there. And then, it just took a month to track them down, and you still could have done this exact same type of film, technically, but it still had that time jump, which to me would have just made it its own kind of separate chapter. You know what I mean? Versus, like you said, like a 7.5 that kind of just continued the, ending what JJ set up. So I just in my mind anyway, I feel like I would have, we could have gotten a more updated crawl of what the gap was versus just a recap of what happened at the end of episode 7. So
yeah, the crawl was really unnecessary for this movie because it started right where we picked up. I was just like, okay, cool. That's what I just saw.
Absolutely
2 years ago, and multiple times since then. So I don't really need a crawl to tell me what happened.
Absolutely,
but it seems like that cliffhanger. I mean, The Force Awakens is great, and that cliffhanger is, it just leaves you wanting more, right?
It does.
You get there, you've been waiting to see Luke the whole time. He turns around, he doesn't say anything, and you're just like, what? What happens?
Yeah,
and you want to hear him, and it seems like it's a really interesting choice, and I think it was a good choice to have him not speak. There's a lot of times in the prequels where dialogue becomes the Achilles heel, right? A character says something, a line of dialogue that is kind of cheesy sounding, and that scene, the emotion is gone.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that cliffhanger, as good as it seemed in The Force Awakens and the first time watching it and sequential viewings, did it make it more difficult for The Last Jedi because it was such a cliffhanger? Should The Force Awakens have actually had a little more finality to the story that it set up? Because, it really left Rian Johnson with nowhere else to go but to start right there.
Did it?
I think it did, because I think everybody wanted to know, what's Luke gonna say, right?
But he doesn't end up saying anything.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So what do you lose if that's the intent? The intent is to show that he doesn't care about what, bringing this lightsaber to him, so he just throws it over his shoulder. Because it seems like there were a few days that went by before he eventually said something to her, right? So why? To me, that's the only reason I'm really struggling with it, because it's like, well, you could have wrapped up in the crawl that, she's trying to be patient to get Master Skywalker to train her, and you drop in, after a week or two or a month, whatever, how long it takes that he's holding out on even, saying anything to her. It could be, honestly, like Chewbacca could have took the Falcon and left for even, and left the, or, kind of checked in every once in a while, but it would, and honestly, think about the effectiveness of that to me, if Rey literally had to be there and day in, day out and wait for him. Just, and I'm trying to think of an example of, think about like, this is kind of cheesy, but, Mr. Miyagi, training Danielson in the first Karate Kid, right?
Yeah, painting the
painting everything,
wax,
making him do all these things, not knowing that he was getting trained this whole time, right? So, it's almost like Luke could have done something to her, maybe mentally, to get her mentally prepared to do it. Now, obviously, the intent was never to train her. Luke was dead set on that he wasn't going to train her. But I don't know. I just feel like that little gap would have made it feel like its own film, because I do feel like it and look at it as part of the overall film of Episode 7, and I don't know if I can get off of that. You know what I mean? So and because of that, like you said, there's disjointedness in the story, and the sudden change in these characters a little bit whereas the timeline isn't that big for them to do that. So I don't, it's tough. It's tough. That's why I struggle with this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wonder, like, if it took place a little bit later, like how much it would have really changed. Because I mean, like you said, it doesn't change a lot. So the crux of the story would have really been the same. But it's that moment of leaving off from The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi, where she's reaching out the saber. That moment kind of shoehorned the story to having to pick up right there.
Yeah, I guess. I guess that's true. But yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of that's one of the things I've been mainly thinking about that, because because I okay, so for example, like I get the Rogue One because it's not an episodic, so it's almost like this should have been a Star Wars story, and Episode 8 should have been something else. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
if you're gonna, Rogue One kind of butts right up to Episode 4 as like kind of a prequel that makes it, to me, it really truly makes it kind of one big film, because you're talking about this ultimate weapon at the beginning of Rogue One and how they need to get the plans, and what happens in the end of Episode 4 is the result of that. So that's one big story. Mm-hmm. So this, it's like, it's the search. As you look at the crawl at Episode 7, it's Luke's vanished. Leia's trying to find him to get his help to restore freedom to the galaxy, right?
Yep.
And Episode 8 concludes with Luke finally returning somewhat and sparking what is now going to be, the ultimate rebellion, in a sense, against the First Order. So that's one big story to me versus two episodes.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it was just answering a lot of the setup and some of the questions, which, I mean, is what you want a sequel to do in some ways.
Yeah.
It was a shortened timeline for sure.
Yeah. So I agree with you on the. I agree with you. I think the best parts of the film are the Kylo Ren Rey connection.
Yeah, the Force Skype. That Force Skype was awesome.
Yeah. And I like
cool.
how in the the story group on the Star Wars show made an interesting comment that I think a lot of people that have complained about The Last Jedi didn't realize, which is that Force connection technically kind of started with Kylo getting in Rey's head in Episode 7.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting that they talked about that, because that's probably one of my favorite scenes from The Force Awakens. Well, I mean, my favorite scene was actually probably Han stepping out to face Kylo. Mm-hmm. Just, I love the emotion when he finally reveals his name as Ben. But when Kylo's looking into Rey's mind, and just the sounds they use with the Force there, and the vulnerability, Kylo reveals, he takes his mask off. Mm-hmm. That's a really powerful scene. I think that's one of the best new Force, because JJ set up some of these new rules. I kind of mentioned those new rules that The Last Jedi brought up that were kind of shocking, and some of them were interesting. But JJ kind of set up this new rule of it's always been around, controlling things with the Force. But Kylo kind of takes it to another level. He has this ability to freeze blaster bolts. We've never really seen that. We've seen deflection. We've never really seen a blaster bolt being frozen. Right. And then he takes Jedi mind tricks to the 10th degree.
Yeah.
Because he not only is telling people, to do something, he's going into their mind and taking information out of it.
Yes.
So that was cool that Rian Johnson built on that. And that connection was great. I mean, I want to see more scenes. I didn't know how much I wanted to see scenes with Rey and Kylo not just fighting, but like just talking through their experiences until I saw this movie. I hope episode 9, we get some of those quieter moments, like when Luke is just talking to Vader, saying, trying to bring him back to the light side, telling him that he's not going to take him to the Emperor. Those moments are what makes Star Wars really cool, right? I mean, the lightsaber battles are great and they're fun to watch. And that was probably my favorite part of The Last Jedi, when Rey and Kylo are fighting together. But some of those quieter moments are what really like make the heart of the movie.
Yeah. But and it explains so much. I mean, that connection that they made in 7 really does explain them, because obviously she fights back and gets in his mind and extracts his feelings. So it only makes sense that they, that they have that ability to get in each other's heads and see each other. And then, of course, their explanation at the end was really good about, the Falcon kind of closing that connection.
Closing the door on Kylo.
Yeah, so she's like, you're out. You're never coming back in, kind of thing. So
I really hope that I'm going to call it like force stalking. I really hope that Kylo somehow like kind of force stalks Rey a little bit and tries to like establish that connection again.
Yeah.
Either to like find her location or just to like, communicate with her.
Yeah.
Because even though it did seem like she was definitely closing the door on him and on that connection, I hope it continues, because it's such an interesting sort of force power that, we haven't quite seen. We've seen people talking, Luke and Vader and Luke and Leia. But just like these conversations that they're having, planets apart are really cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned those 3 things that you kind of were questioning, but so besides those 3, I mean, what other parts about the plot, especially the Canto Bight scenes or the whole plot about the space chase?
Talking like dislikes.
Any problems with those?
Canto Bight was an interesting looking planet, like production design wise. I don't really like Rose's character.
Right.
I don't think I'm alone in that, but I know a lot of people do like Rose. Mm-hmm. I feel like with Finn, they could have probably sent Poe and Finn on that same adventure or another type of adventure together, and you get a lot of the same themes. Because, Finn is still very much this, he's a part of the Resistance, but he still kind of just wants to run away. In the beginning, he kind of just wants to get in the escape pod and get out of there, right? And Poe is this, he's the good old boy. He's loyal. So you could have these moments where Finn's trying to escape and Poe realizes it, and you almost get that interaction with Rose and Finn, but probably even more so, because Poe is going to probably be pretty mad that he's trying to, just defect. Again, defect from a different cause this time. Mm-hmm. And then if they go, if they were to go to Canto Bight, I think it would build on their characters together. You could still give Poe a lot of the same stuff with the Resistance on the ship. Maybe just have the Canto Bight stuff happen a little later. And then, when Finn is kind of interested in all this, luxury and stuff on Canto Bight, Poe can be the guy to like ground it and bring him back to reality.
Yeah.
So I think that's one way they could have kind of made that plot a little better, but Rose's character was just not really for me. And at the end, I was pretty much on board with like Finn was going to die when he's driving that ski speeder. I pretty much just like accepted the fact that he was going to die, and then Rose kind of just flies in out of nowhere, and saves him. And I kind of like the line that she says to him at the end. We've got to what is it? We've got to fight for what is it? Save those we love, or fight for what we love, not not fight about what we hate. I'm butchering the line so badly.
Yeah, no, I think it was like, save what we love. Not it was something about save what we love. Not
fighting what we hate.
Not fighting what we hate. That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's good. I mean, I think that kind of encompasses a lot of the Star Wars themes. I mean, Luke in the original trilogy, he chooses not to fight against Vader. He chooses love, and that's how he ultimately connects with Vader.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Rose and Finn kissing at the end kind of seemed forced. It was a little weird that she like kisses him. He doesn't kiss her back, and then she kind of like just passes out. Those things were a little strange.
Yeah, see, I would have felt the kiss better if she, I hate to say it, but died. But the fact that she didn't die, it was a little awkward.
Yeah, it was just kind of an awkward look. Like the Han and Leia scenes in Empire when they're on the Falcon, and he's kind of approaching her, and she hurts her hand.
Yes.
And, she calls him a scoundrel, and he kind of like laughs about, how he likes that. And then they kiss, that romantic chemistry, like the chemistry works for me in that scene a lot more. Totally. It may be the actors, it may be the writing, and the direction. It's probably all three of those things. But with Finn and Rose, I didn't feel the connection and the romance.
Well, because you don't know, because he hasn't seen Rey either yet. So it's almost like, what is there something there still with Rey and Finn? So
yeah. At the end, there's kind of that moment where Rey meets Poe for the first time, and of course, Poe's this awesome. He's Oscar Isaac. He's a stud.
Yeah,
and she has that look over at Finn, and Finn's tending to Rose, and you can kind of tell there's like a little like question
there's
of
all
like
kinds of tension going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that the Canto Bight stuff was a little strange. I mean, I have some other problems with little moments in the story. This one's kind of small. I actually really like Yoda and the Yoda scene. But I was listening to Kyle Newman is a director, directed Fanboys. He made a really good point about Yoda kind of talks to Luke about failure and, how you can learn and pass on your failures. And how interesting would it have been if that would have been Anakin talking to Luke about failure when Anakin is the ultimate failure, right?
That's true.
I mean, Yoda has some failures, but I get why they chose Yoda. Luke and Yoda have, the history with Empire. Probably resonates better with fans across the board than Hayden Christensen would have. I would have liked to see Hayden Christensen come back. So that's just a little thing that I think would have been really interesting. But I think the overall idea they talked about was really good. Yeah. The passing on of failure, I think he says failure is like the greatest teacher, or the greatest teacher of failure is. That part was really cool.
Right.
But he goes on to tell Luke, where you kind of have that moment where you realize that Luke's going to it's going to click for him again, and he's going to get in touch with the Force. He says, you already lost Ben, but we can't lose Rey. We can't lose her to the dark side. And, my biggest question with that is, what does Luke actually do to save Rey from the dark side, from Kylo and Snoke? He doesn't really intervene on Rey's behalf. He intervenes on the Resistance behalf at the end, but if it weren't for Kylo killing Snoke, Luke honestly would have been too late.
Yeah, true.
To save Rey. So that tee up by Yoda of like, oh, we can't lose Rey. I was like, yeah, you can't lose Rey, Luke. You got to go get her.
I know.
And then it's like, what was the point of that if he doesn't really help her out in some way or make sure that she isn't lost to the dark side? Because really, Kylo just saves her.
Yeah.
So that just kind of leads me to some of the things with Rey in the later part of the movie, the third act, that I think we're just lacking. I like the build-up. I like the idea of her sense of abandonment, her looking for that in Luke, getting rejected, not finding it in him, and then going to Kylo, learning about the truth of what happened with him. I think all that was set up really well. And then her eventually leaving Luke to go to Kylo because she found this sort of acceptance with Ben Solo. And then we get to that third act. It has that amazing scene where Kylo turns the lightsaber on Snoke. They fight together. I'm just like in amazement. The theater's clapping. It was really cool. And then we get to the part where she rejects Kylo, right? I mean, Kylo extends the hand out, kind of does the Anakin, we can rule the galaxy together thing. And that all like fits with her character, you know? She doesn't want to be alone. She's looking for this acceptance, and she thinks that Kylo's going to have that and that they're going to be able to save her friends in the Resistance, and he doesn't. And I think that part was great. And then when we get to that point where she goes to, she comes in on the Falcon to help at the Battle of Crate, that moment was awesome. She's, Chewie's flying, she's shooting down these ships. And then we have this huge moment in the third act where Luke shows up. Rey is probably a football field away and doesn't witness anything of Luke getting there, doesn't get any inspiration by seeing what Luke did.
Right.
And she's just like MIA for this whole part of the third act. Which like that, I guess the structure of it is strange to me, because in The Force Awakens, we have this classic, like the mentor sacrifices himself right before the climax, right? Han's death happens and then Rey and Kylo fight. And so our protagonist is a large part of the climax. And I'm kind of left wondering, like, were there multiple climaxes in this movie? Rey's fight was with Kylo, and then he kind of turns on her a little bit, and she, says no to him, and then she just like lifts these rocks, and that's like her big moment.
Right. Then all of a sudden she's a Jedi.
Yeah, like I just feel like she didn't fail. She didn't fail the way Luke did. Luke left his training early.
Very true.
And goes after his friends, like he would. He's very emotional, and he has compassion, and he fails against Vader. He has to retreat, and it doesn't seem like Rey ever fails at anything, which is just disappointing, because Kylo is such a strong character. He's got all these flaws, and a lot of his flaws are sort of the reverse of what a protagonist's flaws would be.
Right.
He doesn't trust people because of what Luke, attempted to do. He saw Luke attempting to kill him, and he's got these trust issues and abandonment from, maybe his mother and father, Han and Leia. And then Rey's got the similar abandonment issues, but then she never fails at anything that she seems to do.
Right.
So that part with Rey in the third act is probably the biggest plot issue that I see.
Yeah, that's huge, because I haven't really thought about it like that. So, I obviously had a problem with, why couldn't Luke physically be on Crate? But the fact, how powerful would have been, even though I totally agree with the fail part, but even if you're not going to make her fail, to be able to see, I know you're kind of repeating episode 4. If you see your mentor or someone that you want to be your mentor get struck down and killed, but how much of an impact, you're right, how that would have made to her to, train or get better and find others that she can help.
They found a way to do it in dialogue to call out that she knew that Luke had moved on, and I appreciate like having that moment on the Falcon with Leia. But like you just said, she didn't see really
see the impact, and how much it affected Kylo Ren. So, but one last thing I'll say is I heard this on Fat Man on Batman, Kevin Smith, his review, him and Mark Bernard, and they mentioned, which I thought was really, really good. They mentioned how, they were bringing up, obviously, the Leia issue. What's going to happen with Leia now that she survives Episode 8? She obviously can't be in Episode 9. They're they're obviously going to probably, in my mind, I think they're going to solve it by having Leia pass in between time. So they brought up a cool point, which I thought might have been. Now, she's, Carrie Fisher passes away after she completes her scenes. So, but you think about it, how much impactful would it have been if she was the one on the ship initiating hyperspace through the dreadnought?
That would have been really cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I like Laura Dern, but I didn't love Holdo.
I didn't either. And you don't have enough time with her to really appreciate her or even care about her.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing is if I knew she was around longer, I think I'd be excited to see her in another movie.
Yes. Because it would have made a natural transition that she takes over the resistance or the rebellion. Now that Leia has sacrificed herself, and think about this, because I don't think they mentioned this, but if Leia is the one that said no, it's my responsibility, I will do it. Just think of that moment with Luke could have happened right before that, because she could have reached out to him, and that would have made him think of the impact. That would have given him more reason to go to Crate, or even if he had to manifest himself, because
he knows that the resistance is lost without Leia. That's correct. That's a really good point.
Yes,
I mean, we would have missed out on the scene with them together unless they did it another way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if she would have known, if she would have said, okay, I'm doing this, she gets to the bridge, she's sitting there by himself, and she calls to him, and he shows up, as a visual, just like he did, kind of as a visual thing, and they have their final conversation. Like, she's saying, I have to do this, and he's like, no, we'll find another way. And she's like, no, I have to save the crews and all, whatever, have that moment, that desperate moment. I mean, very similar to, kind of similar to Han, I guess, kind of with Kylo in Episode 7. It's like you have this moment where you just know Han's going to die.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable, so, and then, in the reverse instance of, Kylo, it kind of helps him get fully to the dark side. And in this sense, it kind of would bring Luke back to help in a sense, and then maybe you have him, maybe this is a reason at that point you had a reason to carry him on to Episode 9. I don't know.
Yeah, man, because if she flew that ship in hyperspace into the First Order ship, she could have visited Luke as a Force ghost right after that.
Yes, true. If she got trained in that, yes.
Yeah, I mean, she probably wouldn't have been trained in that, so that's probably a little bit of a.
But what a way to go for
that would, yeah. I mean, it was a cool way. It was a cool moment in the film, regardless. The sound dropping out, and it kind of made Holdo's character, like she might live on a little more than she would have.
Yes. Yeah.
Almost kind of like a Kennedy kind of thing. Where he kind of like people idolize, him more so, not even if they knew
what he did,
knew who he was.
Yeah. Right. No, that's true. I remember hearing that from Kevin Smith and thinking like, wow, that is, because they were saying, and they were strictly saying that based on Carrie Fisher passing away. I mean, they were saying, you do that scene, even if you had to kind of do it digitally in a sense. I mean, just make Leia be that go back and reshoot that part where it's like,
didn't they have a shot of Leia sitting on one of those control panels on the ship anyway?
I think so. They probably had a ton of B-roll to be able to do that, in some way. But you're right. But that conversation with Luke could have been tough, or some kind of because I don't know if I don't think they mentioned that though, but I think they mentioned maybe doing some kind of reshoot with Luke that would have made him realize what happened, or
it would have been a big moment for him.
Oh, a huge moment,
Yeah,
I mean, huge moment. Well, I mean, I think we've exhausted enough, but I'm sure we're going to keep talking about it. So, Cody, your homework is to think about stuff that you still want to talk about with this movie, and we'll definitely keep going with it this month.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to chew on.
There
is.
Kind
of opened up with is like the good thing about this movie, and there's a lot that I love about it, is that it keeps you wanting to talk about it. You keep coming back to it. I want to go see it again, and I've already seen it 4 times.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, because I don't remember. I didn't feel this way. I didn't feel like I needed to talk that much about Rogue One or about Force Awakens, even though I love both those movies. This one, because I don't love it, there's just more to talk about because to kind of justify why I don't love it.
It's kind of like it's almost like a movie version of Star Wars therapy,
Yeah.
Because one of the big themes, besides Rey's theme of anyone having an impact, no matter what your upbringing or your status, the other big theme that it communicates is what Kylo says: is let the past die, to stop holding on to nostalgia and embrace the future, which is hard. It's hard for me as a fan. I kind of wanted that nostalgia to last through Episode 9.
Yeah,
I wanted my Luke Skywalker to lift his X-Wing out of the water and show up at the end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely gonna be a lot more to talk about.
Definitely,
it's a good movie. I want to see it again. And
you said, I will. Next time I'm going to see it, I'm probably going to see it with my 8-year-old daughter. So I'd be very curious to hear her opinions on what this movie means to her. Because she hasn't seen all the films. She's seen a little bit of all the films just because I watch them and she comes in the room sometimes. I mean, I think she's seen all of Episode 7 and probably most of Episode 6 because my youngest daughter was obsessed with Episode 6. So she watched a lot of that. But she knows, she's seen pieces of the prequels but hasn't seen the whole thing, of 1, 2, or 3. So, but again, she's in the Force Awakens era, so she's seen that, and I think she'll understand, that this is a continuation of that story. So,
yeah, that'll be cool because I mean, there's all these new characters that she probably enjoys, and the kids growing up are gonna love and know, and they might not hold on to some of these ideas about who Luke is or was or could have been or was in the expanded universe.
Yeah.
So the movie might resonate with them differently, which probably will, which will be cool. It'll be cool to see different perspectives.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing: she's not all that crazy about porgs. She's actually a little freaked out by them.
Oh wow!
So, porgs didn't appeal to every kid.
Maybe she'll like the scene with Chewie then.
Yeah, probably. She probably will. Yeah,
the roasted pork.
I think she'll probably gasp like when he goes to try to take a bite because she's a vegetarian. She doesn't like meat.
Oh wow,
she doesn't like meat, so she's gonna completely resonate with that scene. So, all right. Well, I appreciate Cody being on the show this week. Follow him at Cody Geiler on Twitter. Of course, we are Inside the Force at Inside the Force on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Google+. We keep talking. I know we're working on some more content for our YouTube channel. Thanks to those that have been subscribing and commenting on the trailers and commentaries we put out there. They're still getting some good play. Looking forward to doing the commentary for Episode 8 when that comes out. Apparently, there was an article that came out that the suspected release date is end of March for the Blu-ray release of Episode 8.
Yeah, can't wait.
So we will tackle that and break that down. Obviously, Casey and I were thinking that we should have done a commentary for the Clone Wars movie because that is a Star Wars movie.
It is.
So we may do that. I don't know.
You should commentary the entire Clone Wars.
Oh man, I want to, but that's a lot of content.
Yeah,
I'm going back and trying to watch those anyway because I really want to get another viewing of all those. Love that series. Okay, so other than that, we'll be back next week to talk more about all the news that's happening. Hopefully, more solo news, and then we will talk more about Episode 8. Might bring Cody back. Definitely going to see if Anthony can get on here or Russell and get their perspective. And then my buddy Rainey, who's been on the show a few times years ago, storyteller, writer, novelist. He's got some strong opinions of Episode 8, mainly the story and the plot. And so I definitely want to get him on at some point this month because we're probably gonna go at it a little bit. Because even though I'm on the fence, there's a lot that I know things that I know he doesn't like about it that I feel like I can justify based on my knowledge of Star Wars. So anyway, that'll be fun. Any last words, Cody?
To quote Luke from The Last Jedi, "See you around, kid."
Nice. All right, we appreciate it. Thanks for everybody listening, and we will see and check you guys out next week. He's Cody Geiler.
See y'all.
I'm David Cottingham. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for listening to Inside the Force, a Star Wars podcast hosted by David Cottingham and Casey Cooney. For more shows, additional content, articles, and the latest Star Wars news, please visit InsideTheForce.com. Inside the Force. For the Force in all of us.